Jeff Durkin with We Are Change Connecticut. We're out here at the 2014 Liberty Forum in Nashua, New Hampshire. We're here with one of the speakers, Stephen Howard. You mind telling us why you're out here today and about your topics that you talked about?
Okay, I'm here today because I consider myself a libertarian activist, and this is a great opportunity to come together and share ideas with other libertarians and other activists. It's also a great chance to, have a good time, and it's always a good time here at Liberty Forum, I have to say. I've been here, 6-7 times now. It's great. As far as my topics, well, we're covering, today I covered the issue of the growing police state and the decay in our judicial system, and why basically it's not a question of some evil conspiracy, it's more of a question of the banality of evil. And the bureaucrat, just watch my tongue, can't do a thing with it. It's the bureaucrats that basically create a situation that ratchets itself up and slowly and surely consumes those very principles that supposedly we were upholding. Tomorrow I'm going to be doing a panel on the issue of what to do when the police pull you over and what to expect in court. I'm going to be joined with 2 other excellent attorneys, and we're going to be talking about that. We expect a lot of questions. There's a third topic that I'm doing that's a little off my normal kin, and that's libertarian theory of labor and its history. And it's actually a very positive view on the right of people to organize and to work together to achieve better working conditions outside of the bureaucracy created by the federal government.
Tell us about how you got involved, particularly with the topics that you're here talking about. What kind of got you started? What was your turning point for talking about it and spreading the message to other people?
Well, how did I get involved? Well, first of all, as far as labor is concerned, my father was a labor shop foreman. I've been brought up to respect the picket line and to respect the idea of people's right to organize. And coming out of high school, I have to admit it, I was more of a socialist than anything else. But I really believe strongly in individual liberty and the right of people to own themselves, and ultimately that caused me to conclude that the right to your labor includes the right to the product of your labor. And so therefore I may not enjoy the disparity of wealth. I recognize that in order for me to have an opportunity to aggregate to myself the things that I have to be free to make choices, to make mistakes, and to succeed. That's how I became a libertarian. As far as the law is concerned, that's just a natural outcropping. I deal with people on a daily basis who have a, how do I want to say, a perceived notion of the way the law works, a concept that the words it's constitutional or unconstitutional have real meaning. And they're always shocked by the reality of how the law is administered, how the police work and operate. And this myth is perpetuated by our institutions, our schools, our media, and people need to hear the alternative, need to have the idea that, everything is not good, right, and just. We are a great nation, not because we're a nation, but because we're made of great people. This whole collective mentality, unfortunately, depresses the individual greatness of each people for the common good. And then common good can be achieved by your ability to expand, your ability to go out there and make something of yourself the way you want it made, and the same for me. And as long as I don't violate your rights and vice versa, we're all good. But when we look at the criminal justice system, there is a disparity. There's a disparity in wealth, there's a disparity in race as to the application, and it's unfortunate and it's true. It's not intentional, but it's true. And we're not going to solve it by keep repeating mantras and passing more legislation. We as a community need to fix this.
Particularly one of the interesting topics is about the police state, and you mentioned the preconceived notion of how they look up particularly to people with badges and uniforms and guns. Yeah. And people seem, even with filming police, like what we're doing now, filming, there's a notion that people can't film police. Any advice for people who out there who may want to do that, but they think that it's an intimidation tactic? Any advice for people who want to film police?
Okay, my first advice would be is every state is different. Let's start there. But as a general proposition, your right to videotape anyone in the public, acting in the public eye, is not restricted, okay? For limited purposes only, of course, but is not restricted. The officers conducting police activity in a public place can be videotaped. In fact, they generally are videotaped by the hidden cameras that are kept all over the place. When you have officers objecting to your videotaping, when you have officers feeling like they're being intimidated, I have to ask yourself, this microphone is a lot less intimidating than the gun that cop is wearing. Okay, and I don't care how much training he has. All that says to me is he's better at shooting me than I am at recording his image. So you have to do what you feel is safe, and you have to do it in a way that doesn't interfere with the process that's going. You're there to record it. You have to be, in many ways, detached from it. If you do not engage the police, you just simply record them, you should be all right. But if you attempt to engage them, you attempt to approach them, you may be giving them license to respond accordingly.
And you also talked about, too, how even if you're pulled over for something or any kind of situation like that, for the situation where it happens to everybody, where people let their guard down and they have the way the questions asked them, the way the police officer asks you a question, what can people do to prevent that? To, give less information to the police, and then they have the ability to just, keep asking you questions. And, what's the advice for people like that?
Real quickly, first, if it's a yes or no question, your answer should be yes or no. Second of all, you cannot talk your way out of anything. You can only talk your way into something. So be mindful of the fact that everything you say can ultimately be turned on you. Third thing is that you have to be clear in that if you, case in point, if you're approached by an officer, and we'll talk about it tomorrow, some states require that you do identify yourself, okay? Beyond that, you should be able to say, am I free to go? If you're not free to go, then he's considering you a potential suspect. So what's your best advice? Shut up. Just shut up. All right? I'm sorry. You really want to go to that party. You know that, oh, that girl you're waiting for, she's there. Oh, it'll be wonderful. All I got to do is get rid of this cop. Take my word for it. He's going to use what you say. Now, you're a victim. Quite the contrary. Share your information clearly. But if the cop's coming to you and you have no reason to know why, one of the great questions is, do you know why we pulled you over? How would you answer that? It's a speculation. You have no idea what the cop's thinking. What is the cop really asking you? Please admit what you've just done wrong so I don't have to go any further. The answer is I have no idea what you're thinking. That's the obvious answer. Stay to the point, listen to the question that's asked, answer the question if you're not going to incriminate yourself. But if you're not free to go, you're probably going to incriminate yourself. It's that simple.
You mentioned the criminal justice system, how it relates to the police state, and it seems like almost a two-tiered justice system where there's almost documented evidence of police beating up even peaceful protesters, people on the street, like the Kelly Thomas case. What could people do like that to kind of reverse that trend, whether it's, like jury nullification, anything like that you would recommend?
My recommendation is this, is that what has really made a difference in both policing and in the community is the fact that people are willing to stand up and try to hold them accountable. We had an incident up in Burlington where protesters, basically as part of the Occupy Burlington, were attempting to protest this gathering of governors and so forth. And there was a videotape of officers at point-blank range firing pepper gun pellets at these people. And there were just so many cameras there. There was so much, and they got the story out. But if you watched the news, the story was about these unruly protesters who had to be dispersed by the police. So my first answer is don't rely on the very institution, media, that is there to support the state. The second thing is that you have to realize if a cop is investigating a cop, the likelihood is you're not going to get the investigation you really expect. Okay? So if you're not going to win it in the courts and you're not going to win it in the bureaucracy, you have to win it in the community at large. The more people are informed, the more people are confronted with the reality of the police state, the more they're going to start paying attention. Let me give you a good example. 3 years ago, was it? I'm talking to my wife here. 3 years ago, our friend there talking about drones. Oh, okay. 3 years ago, my friend comes to me and he says, I want you to see this. And he showed me pictures of an array of drones that he said the state of Vermont was going to be getting, and that he had found out from it from an anonymous source within the Department of Safety. From that point until the point it was finally announced, that information was thrown at every media outlet that possibly could have it, and they would not touch it. His problem was that he never got it outside of that stream. He went to the legislature, he went to the media, nobody was interested. Less than a year ago, the governor announces that we have drones in Vermont, but they're only going to be used for limited purposes. And the media story was essentially the governor's story. That's a failure on the part of activists to get the story out there and talk about why does the state of Vermont need drones. And as I announced this morning, why does Vermont need a tank? Why is it that our police need to be militarized if they're only for domestic purposes? Okay, why do we need military equipment? That's incredible when you think about it. That wasn't the country I grew up in, and I'm considerably older than you are. Cops used to be law enforcement officers, peace officers. They kept the peace. Now they're law enforcement officers. They're SWAT teams. It's about what? Violence, not peace. Until we as a community wake up to that reality, step up and say, this is unacceptable, we will continue down this road. And the only way that's going to happen is individuals like yourself, that camera, this microphone, this speaker, coming forward and saying, you know, you're right, we're getting out of hand. We need to correct this. When that starts happening, people will change. Take a look at marijuana. I'm sorry to ramble here. Stop me at any time. Look at marijuana. When I was younger, nobody admitted to smoking, but everybody smoked. When I got out into the working world, everybody knew where to go, but nobody ever mentioned it. Now Vermont's looking at legalizing marijuana. Really? In my lifetime, we've gone from marijuana, the killer of teens, to marijuana, a legalized crop that could be taxed. How was it? Because we had activists, like activists here in New Hampshire, who came forward and challenged the paradigm and got their own story out. How do we stop the police state? By challenging the story and getting our own story out.
Wrapping up here, any websites that people recommend to learn more? Any people out there who want to learn more about whether it's what topics that you talk about related to that? Just some info for people to learn more about it instead of a short rundown.
Oh my God. Well, first of all, I always recommend go to Institute of Justice. That's a good libertarian attorney organization working on individual liberties. But you can go to ACLU. They're working more and more on these issues, and they're moving closer to the liberty community in our activism, and we're seeing it. The truth of the matter is that much of what I speak about is personal experience. This is what I've drawn from. I'm essentially witnessing, if you will, my experiences so that other people understand they are not alone. You don't have to go online. Go out in your streets. You don't have to watch the media. Watch the tubes. You don't have to necessarily look for the written authority. Go to your courthouse. How many of your viewers have actually one day just gone to an arraignment and watched as person after person after person is processed through the system, introduced to this command and control system? That's an education in and of itself that you'll never get on an internet. So I would recommend that. Experience it. No, by the way, no, don't go to court, but go to court and see for yourself what it is and what's happening. Because it's not individual justice, it's process justice.
Some really interesting stuff right around the corner. I'm talking like in the next like 3-4 months, we're getting access to some capital which can do just things that had not even been conceived a year ago, you know? And I didn't even think a few of these materials were ready for the market yet, and they're out there. And we've got developer access and stuff.
We're down here as a presence, and we're...
As a presence? What do you mean by as a presence? That sounds intimidating to me.
No, it's not intimidating. We're just here to let people know that the Army is part of what we do.
Nice, nice.